So once we have had this first round of 6 minutes each, thank you very much for your discipline in advance. I will just put you a short question before we turn to the audience. And without any other consideration, Maximo, are you ready to start?
No, sure. Thank you so much. A pleasure to be with you again. What I will do is I will present a very small presentation showing the situation today and the situation tomorrow so that we can open the discussion. If you can please share the slides. Okay, can you see the slides? Because
yes, we see your slide.
Okay, can we move please to the slide of today and where there are some indicators? Because I cannot see them.
Yes, we have it. We have today economic inequalities.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So this is the photograph of today. We have 733 million people in chronic hunger. This is the midpoint estimated in the latest SOFI. We have people that lack regular access to food of 2.3 billion. And we have an affordable healthy diets access of 2.8 billion people. And when we look at the emergency world where we use the concept of acute food insecurity, which is a short-term comfort concept, we're talking of 281.6 million people. So the numbers are terrible. They are basically the same in the last 3 years. There has not been any significant improvement, although there are some improvements, especially in South. Now, this is in a context where conflicts have been increasing, climate events have been increasing in frequency and intensity, and of course we have the economic and financial situation that we'll elaborate at the end. But also in a context where we have huge inequalities. So basically, this food operate both to provide the food for the right to food is facing these risks and uncertainties and challenges that we need to look at carefully. Next, please. So here you just see the map of the global food crisis report. The dark blue are crises that are happening permanently. Lighter blue are crises because of, for example, of migration, like in the case of the Andean countries in South America because of the migration from Venezuela. But this is the 281.6 million people. But the most important, if we move to the next slide, is that for consecutive years, this prevalence rate has remained stubbornly high, between 21 to 23%, despite record levels of humanitarian financing, which tells you a lot because it tells you that this will keep increasing these needs. But not only that, it tells you that 36 countries and territories have featured in this report for the past 8 years, highlighting the difficulty of exiting acute food insecurity conditions when they become acute. So countries repeat, and 19 are defined as both protracted and major food crisis. So many of these countries of the 59 are coming back, and we cannot resolve yet that problem. Next, please. Now, in terms of the climate, we have trespassed 6 of the 9 planetary boundaries. And what this is telling us, if we move to the next slide, is that the biophysical dynamics are no longer linear, and the speed of the problems will be increasing, potentially exponentially, and there are tipping points that could be crossing. So what we have certainty about is that the frequency of the climate and the intensity of the climate events will keep increasing. An example in looking at daily temperature anomalies in the next slide, you will see that we already have passed in 2015 the first days above the 1.5 degrees Celsius. But in February 2024, we have 4 consecutive days above the 2 degrees Celsius. So these climate events will happen. So we need to be prepared for that, and we need to increase our resilience to that because we know that will be happening. No matter we start doing the corrective measures over time, it will take time for this to go back to what we need it to be. If we go to the next slide, the other element which is important is to understand that these climatic shocks will increase inequalities more. Specifically, if we go to women-led households, we know that they are significantly more vulnerable to climate stress. For example, an annual heat stress will impact women over men in 8% more. This is around $37 billion. Annual extreme precipitation will impact women over men 3% more. We know that a 1 degree centigrade increase in average temperature will affect 34% of income of women more than men and 24% of farm income. So for sure, this will exacerbate in the current situations the inequalities that we are facing. Now, if we look at the next slide on tomorrow, the projections we have ceteris paribus, the situation of today for tomorrow, which is in the next slide, is that we will be facing around 581.7 million people in hunger by 2030, which is 130 million more than what would have been if there was no COVID-19. So COVID-19 did have a significant shock and impact. Also the war in Ukraine, but the impact of COVID-19 is significantly bigger because of the intensity and because of the effect it has over the countries. Now, if we move to the next slide, my perception of what is going to happen in the three
Can you
key
move next
drivers,
slide,
which is
please?
conflict,
Sorry.
climate.
Yeah, okay. I think the next one.
Okay, so in the three key drivers of conflict, climate, and economic crisis, first is that conflicts
Back, please.
are historically, and there are significant new political instabilities. So this will keep increasing unless we have a structural change. And we have been seeing what is happening right now in Africa, but also what is happening in Syria, and so on and so forward. We have a big problem in South Sudan. We have significant problems in DRC. Outside of course, Gaza and the dramatic situation in Gaza. So the situation, geopolitical situation is critical and will affect it significantly. Although it's important to understand that the game in the world will change because there will be bigger size of conflicts. And that's, we can try to see if there is any opportunity that will allow us to reduce the conflicts that happens within countries right now. We are working today in predicting those. In climate, as I said before, frequency and intensity will increase. And economic crises, we have the bigger problem for poor countries, that they are debt stressed. Significant number of LDCs and countries are in a situation, which means that when the price of food increase, it's not only the impact of price of food, it's also the impact of exchange rate devaluation because of the increase of the global interest rates, the impact of the increase of interest on the debt they have to get to be able to cover their import bill, plus the debt that they have to service today, not only debt from international organizations, but also private debt. That means that they cannot cover for sure the food import bill, and that will create a significant problem in terms of access to food and access to quality food, which is a major challenge. So just to finalize, and I won't go in detail in this slide, if you go to the next one, I think the major job is, we know these risks are going to happen, how we can minimize those, and that's what we call resilience. It has two components: minimize risk, that is being preventive, and the second one is how we can increase capacity of absorption. So if the shock happens, we are more ready for it to resolve it. Let me stop there, and thank you.
Thanks, Maximo, for the way forward, but unfortunately also those sobering views on where we stand. And Philippe, would you follow up, please?